Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for Zhufu. Making her initial appearance as a placeholder ghost back in Servant Summer Camp, Zhufu has poked her head in from time to time. Got a voice in Tesla Fest, showed up in Trom. Now she's here for real as our first low-rarity alter ego. And she's got a really weird kit on the surface, but as you'll see, terrifying potential lies within. The most common use for Zhufu is either as a supplement or low-budget replacement to a second Castoria. Arts teams generally aim to span double phantasms, so any servant with arts buffs, batteries, and MP gain effects comes up as a contender. Keep that in mind as we go forward. Our journey begins with 5 Grain Praise. This is a 2k party heal that removes a single debuff and increases your team's NP gain. This is a very powerful combo, and in another universe, its 5-turn cooldown would have made Zhufu a terrifying staller. Not the case, unfortunately. You'll find out why later. But one thing that is very nice is that this skill gives you a microcosm of Asclepius' skills. You usually don't want to run Assclap outside of defensive teams, but there are a lot of situations where you get some obnoxious debuff slapped on you turn 0, like Buff Blocker and P-Seal. You want to run someone that can get you out of that hole, but a lot of the skill-based cleanse servants don't fit neatly onto offensive arts teams. Zhufu fills that function while still letting you play aggressively. Quite handy. Next on the itinerary is Taoist Arts, Out. This is a party arts, crit damage and anti-undead buff with AoE crit chance reduction. The arts buff has obvious applications, but the anti-undead effect is an unusual addition, though it's a bit of a gimmick. Undead enemies tend to be pushovers in the first place, currently found only on non-servant enemies. The closest you'll see is the occasional placeholder ghost. The upcoming Summer Wu does have the ability to turn enemies into undead, but she's a buster servant, so it's not really worth the extra effort to run the two together. The last of Zhufu's regular skills is Legend of Zhufu. This is a targeted 30% battery that comes with a single turn of buff removal resistance. Additionally, if your target is Yume Ren, she gains NP damage and a further 20% charge. Let's set aside the issue of Paisen for the moment, since that's more meme territory than anything practical. I'll talk more about her in the meme/poor friend guide. This targeted battery let Zhufu muscle into the territory of 2 more servants, Santa Nightingale and Nero Bride. Nero keeps an edge in the magnitude of her NP gain effect and the presence of attack and anti-heaven buffs, but she costs significantly more to deploy in your team. So often you'll take Zhufu over Nero to free up party space for more powerful craft essences or additional backliners. Zhufu being a 3-star servant is extremely convenient in this regard. Not only will she be available year-round in almost every banner, but she's very light in terms of deployment cost. As for Usurping Nightingale, buff removal resistance is an extremely valuable commodity. One of the few weaknesses of Castoria's buff suite is that those effects can be purged, leaving you vulnerable in fights where that mechanic shows up. Some enemies have their purge on a skill, in which case you're just kind of screwed, but others have theirs tied to a break bar or their noble phantasm. These you have much better odds of timing, in which case you commit the Legend of Zhufu on that turn to preserve your main attacker. Now the issue is that you may need the battery sooner, in which case the purge resistance goes to waste. Either run a different frontline charger and then swap to Zhufu, or keep Santa Nightingale in your backline to double down. Now we come to Zhufu's noble phantasm. I present the Elixir of Eternal Life, Lie. This is a non-damaging arts card that heals over 5k and applies a huge star income effect, 20 stars per turn for 5 turns. Its overcharge is a personal heal per turn, starting at 1k. If these buffs were party-wide effects, Zhufu could start creeping on Merlin's territory, but unfortunately they're all personal buffs. Now the stars per turn can be useful, but you have to weigh that against the fact that you'd be running a starting charge craft essence to get access to it. Because Zhufu lacks any spread charge, she's really just riding off the 30% from your friendless Castoria. I personally don't think that's worth the trouble in most situations. So you have a bit of a dud for her noble phantasm, but I think that's more than fair given the sheer utility Zhufu has at such a low rarity. But this situation means that, aside from timing the buff purge mechanics, she really doesn't need to be on the field for long. Consequently, some of the best craft essences for her are taunt CEs. Good poster girl is ideal, but rare and quite costly to deploy. Your next best option is Outrage, which you can get from the Rare Prism shop through one of the old Chaldea Boys tickets. As a 4-star CE, it's quite a bit cheaper to use than Poster Girl, though it comes with a drawback of only working for a single turn. Here's the thing though, Zhufu doesn't need to be fully leveled to do her job, so you can ascend her just enough to get the Legend of Zhufu and then stop, leaving her with a much thinner health pool. This increases the odds of her getting KO'd during that single turn, and then you can rotate in another support. There are 2 other notable options in terms of CEs. The first is actually your Bond craft essence, No Time to Die. Sounds like a Bond movie. Zhufu in, No Time to Die. How this works is that it gives Zhufu a one-time guts. She'll shit out 30 stars. Supports like Zhufu have the option of running janky CEs like this, and 30 stars isn't a bad payoff. But the catch is that you don't really want her to stay on the field if she's taking this kind of damage in the first place. So the guts really just complicates things. A bit of a mixed bag. The last option is one anyone can afford at any time. Nothing. Seriously. Zhufu has a low priority noble phantasm, and she's already someone who saves you deployment cost, so you can just raw dog and get away with it. Don't underestimate this, especially in advanced quests. Speaking of which, one of the quirks of advanced quests is that you don't have access to your friends list. Because of this, you're pressed on two fronts. Your deployment cost is higher and you can't run duplicate servants. Obviously, Zhufu is well suited to counter the cost issue, but her being a Castoria light lets you operate an art system without losing too much in terms of efficiency. She's not quite as exploitable as Summer Scotty in this regard, who is a second Scotty for quick setups. But you can't always unga bunga through these, so remember Zhufu for situations like this. Overall, Zhufu is an extremely useful unit to have. A budget art enabler has obvious applications in early account building, but even players at endgame will appreciate the utility and redundancy she has to offer, at a low deployment cost no less. Get her 3 skills leveled up, and you'll be a happy camper. Thumbs up. History time. Well, it's more myth than history this time, but when you go back this far in time, this sort of thing is to be expected. Before I start on that, however, I'd like to remind you that I'm not a real historian. I just like a good story. And Zhufu's takes us to the dawn of Imperial China. Qin Shi Huang has just united the fractured feudal remnants of the Zhou dynasty under his iron fist, forming them and a package of new conquests into the centralized Qin dynasty. And the emperor was a busy man, building walls, burning books, burying scholars, a lot of things to take care of. But you see, Shi Huangdi realized there's not enough time for it all. Not in a day, but in his life. And I'm sure the odd assassination attempt didn't give him much peace of mind on that front either. The emperor needed to solve this whole dying issue, so he gathered together his leading alchemists and intellectuals, presumably the ones he didn't bury, and said, "Find me the elixir of life." So they get to thinking and come up with a lead. Supposedly there's this place somewhere across the sea called Mount Penglai, and the elixir? It's right there. Then the emperor goes, "Great! Zhufu, take some ships and find this place. I'm going to hedge my bets and drink mercury until you get back." So Zhufu heads out into the open sea. Cut to a few years later when he comes back to the emperor, empty-handed. What possible reason do you have for showing your face around here? Realizing that the wrong answer would prevent him from leaving this conversation alive, he blurts out, there was this thing, a giant sea monster. It was churning up the water, being all menacing. And most importantly, your majesty, it was in the way. I found the way to Mount Penglai. I just need a bit of muscle to get there. The big cheese buys it, and this time, Zhufu is given a much bigger entourage to get the job done. Not only did he get a unit of elite archers, several hundred strong, but he was given the means to establish a base of operations once he made landfall. Metalworkers, craftsmen, farmers, and a bunch of kids because why the hell not? Make it a multi-generational project. So Zhufu set off with this fleet, hell-bent on getting the job done right this time. And by get the job done right, I mean rug pull the emperor and get the fuck out. The sea monster? No such thing. Mount Penglai? No fucking clue. What Zhufu did know was that he was a dead man the next time he set foot in China, so it's time to find a new home. He then disappears from the Chinese record, only to appear in the Japanese record. Zhufu pulls up along the coast of Honshu and realizes he can set up shop just about anywhere. To cure his indecision, he tries his hand at some divination. He takes a cup, throws it into the water, and watches as it makes its way to shore. That's where he makes landfall. While his subordinates do all the boring stuff like actually building a functional base, Zhufu spots a curious formation in the distance. Now what if that is Mount Penglai? Better take a look. Unfortunately for him, he finds neither Mount Penglai nor the elixir of life, but he does get to scope out a nice view from Mount Fuji. With that bit of sightseeing out of the way, Zhufu plays the first hour of civilization for the rest of his life. Zhufu, though, he came at a pretty interesting time. Japan was exiting the Stone Age and entering the Bronze Age. Well, this Chinese alchemist supposedly shows up with an entourage of craftsmen and farmers right as the Japanese make huge advancements in metalworking and agriculture. In other words, Zhufu gave the Japanese an injection of knowledge and jump-started their journey through the eternal tech tree. To this day, Zhufu is a popular enough figure in Japan that he has the odd park and statue dedicated to him. As recently as the year 2000, they erected a big statue of him all the way down at the southern tip of Kyushu. They were like, hey, we got a big old mountain. Zhufu could have landed here. He could have made landfall anywhere. Thanks for watching, lads. Like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more, and come out to twitch.tv/Finotaisen where I stream every week, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Friday through Sunday. This weekend, I'm marathoning a bunch of gachas on Friday, running a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament on Saturday, and playing FGO on Sunday. So stop on by for a good time. See you there.